Well, hello again. It's Sunday, the 7th of December 2025. You can probably still hear the cicadas clicking away in the background. Not quite so much bird song today, so if you find that distracting, it should be a little more comfortable for you. So, what have I seen this week? Well, a couple of things worth mentioning, I think. Now, Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, currently, was being interviewed about his appearance in Dan Farah's Age of Disclosure movie. Mr. Rubio tells us it wasn't a recent interview. The one that appeared in Dan Farah's movie, it wasn't a recent interview. He wasn't actually a Secretary of State then. Or the National Security Advisor. it was recorded 3 or 4 years ago. So Mr. Rubio's doing a fair bit of backpedaling. I think he's seen it, and he's realised that in that interim period, he's realised that it's all bullshit. So he's doing a bit of backpedaling. Now, at that time, he was in the Senate. Mr. Rubio tells us it wasn't a recent interview, and that he was describing things that had been said to him, not things that he had first-hand knowledge of. So, he's, I think Mr. Rubio is doing a little bit of backpedaling now. He's saying, well, it was a few years ago. Probably the usual suspects, sort of Grusch and Elizondo and Putoff and Davis were telling him that this was going on. And he said that he was just describing things that have been said to him, not things that he had first-hand knowledge of. So I think we can put a line through Marco Rubio's interview as well in the Age of Disclosure. I mean, as well as the others, they're all nonsense, as I've said before, But Farah, Mr. Rubio tells us Farah used a little bit of selective editing. Well. Won't be the first time, would it? That sort of thing has been done to push this ET narrative. Leslie Keane admitted the same thing back in 2017, or it might have been afterwards actually, that she left a lot out of the article she did or the presentation she did because she wanted to steer the ET narrative. It's very common with these people. Because there's no substance to it, they have to try and generate interest in it. So, Mr. Rubio thinks that's okay. The selective editing is okay, because Farah was trying to sell a show. That's how Mr. Rubio thinks of this as the Age of Disclosure documentary. It's not some sort of monumental thing that's going to make everybody sit up and notice. It's a show. Now, journalist Michael Schellenberger published an article during the week quoting a senior advisor to Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio. So Schellenberger published an article during the week quoting a senior advisor to Mr. Rubio, who says, quote, wait for it, we are headed toward a massive disclosure. Now, when that might happen, of course, remains vague. Well, who would have picked that? And, of course, this alleged senior advisor remains anonymous. This subject gets worse and worse and worse, doesn't it? People trying to put a few PSI into the deflating story, If we're heading for a massive disclosure, of course it doesn't happen. Down goes the balloon again. So, Mr. Rubio was sworn in as US Secretary of State on January the 21st, 2025. This year. He became the US National Security Advisor on May the 1st this year. So he was given both of these positions this year. When he was interviewed for the Age of Disclosure movie 3 or 4 years ago, Mr. Rubio was neither the US Secretary of State or the US National Security Advisor. Of course, Mr. Farah doesn't tell us that, so he does an interview years ago, but now he is, the Secretary of State. It's all over the screen. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, but he's not making those comments as the Secretary of State, is he? He's making those comments as a senator, which is what he was at the time. And he tells us he has no idea if any of this is real. He was he was just going by what he was told by others. That's that recurring theme, isn't it? Told by others. Again, no tangible evidence. No one's seen it, touched it. Here's a piece of it. I've been told by others. So, this is at best embellishment on Farah's part, I think. At worst, it's deliberately misleading, isn't it? If you're sitting there, you think you're looking at the Secretary of State. All right, it's the same guy, but he wasn't the Secretary of State way back then. I wonder if he'd make a similar sort of statement being the Secretary of State. He might say this is just not significant enough for me to bother with. Just like the arrest, at worst deliberately misleading, just like the rest of this ET is coming here and crashing here. Bullshit. Farah goes on to tell us what ultimately has to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens soon after the film comes out. I think the sitting president has to step up to the microphone and say definitively, humanity is not alone in the universe. We have recovered technology of non-human origin. So have other nations. There is a high-stakes, secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race. And of course, the sitting president isn't going to do that because there is no Cold War race to reverse engineer alien spacecraft. There are no alien spacecraft on Earth. There's not a scrap of tangible evidence to support one single alien spacecraft crashing on this planet. Not one. And I think if Trump does step up to the podium, what he will say is he will confirm what the Pentagon said. There is no tangible evidence to support extraterrestrials coming here, crashing here, and their technology being reverse engineered. That's what Trump will say. If they keep pushing him, that's what Trump will get on the podium and say. Oh me. Now, Trump is also aware that Roswell is the biggest tourist attraction in the US. So he might be a little more, he might throw a bit of ambiguity in there because he doesn't want to kill the tourist industry in Roswell. Mind you, he's got nothing to worry about really, because if he comes out and says exactly what the Pentagon said, then it's all rubbish. That's an official statement from the Pentagon. There's not a scrap of tangible evidence to support any of this stuff. ETs coming here, crashing here, and their technology being reverse engineered. There's not a scrap of tangible evidence to support that. If Trump said that, they'd say, well, you can't believe a word Trump says. All the fanboys, wouldn't they? So he's got nothing to worry about with regard to tourism in Roswell, really. The gullible will still flock there and spend their money. And I think Mr. Farah is kidding himself, really, with regard, he thinks his movie is far more important than it actually is. I mean, most people are laughing at it. Even some of the fanboys that would normally be on my side, on the other side of the fence to me, are saying, well, it's bullshit, really. It's all bullshit, isn't it? There's no evidence for any of this stuff. So I think more and more, if that movie's done anything at all, it's driven more people away. There's more and more people. If you look at the TV interviews now The interviewers are more challenging. They say, what's the evidence for this stuff? Evidence? Don't be ridiculous. Last thing we want is evidence. You know, just ask Gary Nolan or Ross Coulthart. Oh dear. So, you know, we haven't recovered any technology of non-human origin. No other nation has any extraterrestrial technology. The reason that they're saying there's a high-stakes Cold War race to reverse engineer it is because supposedly this has been going on for decades and nothing's been produced from it. You know, people are saying, oh, well, all we need to do is crack this and we'll have free energy. Well, no. Free energy is not real. Nothing in nature is real. So if you did recover an alien spacecraft, it wouldn't be powered by free energy anyway. You're not going, as I've said before, you're not going to be able to recover an alien spacecraft because the ones that are described that crash here are small discs. You know, they would have come from a mothership. The mothership will be geared up for contingencies. It will recover their technology and their people. We would be able to do nothing whatsoever to stop them. Nothing is going to be left here for us to reverse engineer so that we can get to them and potentially destroy them. It's nonsense. It's science fiction rubbish. Farah goes on. You know, there's this high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race. Well, no one's going to win the race, of course, because no one is racing. And the US intends to lead in this new chapter. No new chapter. No new chapter coming from ET. Recovered ET materials. Sounds like he swallowed Carl Nell's bullshit hook, line and sinker. I suppose, you know, he's a bit of a fanboy, Farah. He's a mate of Steven Spielberg's, who likes all this alien stuff. And if he's got a parade of people coming up to him and saying, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm a colonel, I'm an admiral, you know, this is all real, it's all happening, you know, I haven't got any evidence of that, but just you know, people have told me. You know, Farah's going to lap it up. Maybe Farah really does believe all this rubbish. He's obviously not capable of critical thought, is he? I'm being dive-bombed. I don't know whether you can hear that. Now there's a fly has found me. I wonder if it's a UAP. I mean, it might not be a living thing, you know. It might be a massive starship that the aliens have shrunk down to the size of a blue ball. And it's investigating the planet, starting with my place. You know, like these aliens, you know, they fly all the way across the galaxy and they'll start in Nolan's bedroom. You know. Star Traveller, member of the Starship crew, has got such a profound message for Gary Nolan. He says, go to bed. In English. Telepathically. You know, these people are taken seriously. So, you know, has Farah just swallowed all this complete bullshit hook, line and sinker? Does he believe it? You know, there's not a scrap of tangible evidence to support even one of those statements made by Nell, Gallaudet, Elizondo, you know, Davis, Puroff. The list goes on and on, doesn't it? But there's just no evidence. That's the bottom line. Now, Trump isn't going to get on the podium and tell us this is true, because it isn't. As I've said before, it's more likely I will be made the next Pope than it is that Donald Trump will get on the podium and say this planet's being visited by aliens, they're crashing here, and their technology is being reverse engineered. It's just not going to happen. Now, all these people are peeing into the wind. You know, they can spruik all this bullshit forever. They're never going to get they're never going to hear what they want to hear from an American president or any other president. Now, Joe Rogan asked Farah if he knew if Trump has watched his movie. So, Mr. Farah, says Joe Rogan, has Trump watched your movie? Farah replies, he knows Trump hasn't watched it. So that tells me, you know, someone's probably said to Trump, now how does Farah know? You know, somebody that knows Trump has spoken to Farah, have they? So what is? So someone has said, someone has told Farah that Trump hasn't watched it. So Trump's probably gone, not more of this ET bullshit. I haven't got time for that, you know. Trump has no interest in this. Trump has told us he personally doesn't believe in aliens. As I've said before, this tells me all I need to know. It tells me no one from any program, compartment, agency, private contractor, foreign government has told Trump that aliens are coming here and crashing here. You know, and if Trump really thought trillions of dollars and billions of dollars were disappearing into a black hole to reverse engineer this stuff, he would have set Elon Musk on it. His Doge days, you know. He would have said, how much are we talking about here? He's interested in saving $700 from some a grant to some squirrely bloody thing. He's going to be very interested in finding where billions of dollars are going into the black hole, isn't he? You know, it's and Musk said there's nothing to it. They found nothing. See, what the fanboys don't consider is that if there is indeed millions of dollars, billions of dollars missing from the coffers of the US government, doesn't mean it's all going to one place. You know, it will go to lots and lots of little places in much smaller amounts. So, yeah, put a line through Trump disclosing anything. He's not going to. Put a line through a Cold War to reverse engineer this stuff. It's just science fiction nonsense. Rogan asked Farah, I want to ask you, were there specifics when they talk about technology that was acquired that was then rolled into... Rogan pauses. Farah replies, no. No one said it on the record. I've had suspicions. Like what, says Rogan? You know, so nobody has gone on the record with Dan Farah. None of these people that appeared in his movie, not one of them, has gone on the record and said, we have recovered extraterrestrial technology. Not one of them. So, I've had suspicions, says Farah. Like what, says Rogan? How it has impacted hypersonic missiles. How it's impacted hypersonic missiles, that's very obviously terrestrial technology. I mean, they're propelled by chemical reactions, aren't they? Chemical rockets. People have been making hypersonic missiles for a very long time. You know, nuclear missiles, Tridents, are hypersonic. They go many times faster than sound, up into space and then down again. So put a line through that, that's complete nonsense. I've heard things about early days of fibre optics. Now this will be from Philip Corso's book, and remember, you know, that's complete bullshit. His son said that most of it was fabricated so he'd sell enough copies to put his grandkids through college. Corso described thin glass tubes, and he filtered that into industry for fibre, so they could develop fibre optics. Fibre optic cores are not hollow. That would have nothing whatsoever to do with fibre optics. So that's complete bullshit. Yeah. As I've said before, Corso is just another example of a high-ranking military officer that's just a bullshitter. You know, being a colonel, being an admiral, you know, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of bullshitting. It doesn't. It doesn't exclude you from being a bullshitting fanboy. You may very well believe what they're saying. Small glass tubes from the Roswell crash. As I've said before, Roswell crash was not the crash of an extraterrestrial spacecraft. This whole thing is anchored to this crashed balloon, mogul balloon in Roswell. And it's nonsense. Just try shining a laser down a tube that, that goes like that. See what happens. See how far your light gets. Oh dear. So he's heard things about night vision, but no one would go on the record and say something definitive. Yeah, of course not. They can't give any details that could be checked. Any details given could be checked by Arrow, couldn't they? And they would be revealed to be science fiction rubbish immediately, if not sooner. So this is getting a bit repetitive, isn't it? But I mean, these guys are repetitive, so if I'm going to comment on what they're saying, it's probably going to get repetitive, isn't it? Yeah. As I've said before, it's complete nonsense. Farah's movie is just nonsense. I saw Knapp and Corbell's weaponised podcast. George Knapp said it was good to see Lou Elizondo and Jay Stratton on the same stage, even if they weren't being entirely truthful. So does that mean Jay Stratton and Lou Elizondo have fallen out, have they? It was good to see them on the same stage, even if they weren't being entirely truthful. None of these people are being entirely truthful. I mean, it doesn't really matter. If they believe this bullshit, they can swear it all under oath, and it's completely meaningless. Elizondo and Stratton not being entirely truthful. Elizondo, the chandelier man, and Stratton with his hitchhiking poltergeist story not being truthful. FFS. Knapp continues. But if you're making a movie and you're calling for disclosure and honesty, and we want to know the truth, tell us the truth. So this is Elizondo and Stratton, presumably in the Age of Disclosure movie. Or is it Dan Farah? You're making a movie, you're calling for disclosure and honesty, and we want to know the truth. Tell us the truth. We can handle the truth. We want transparency. You have to live up to that standard too. Now, this is what George Knapp is saying to Elizondo and Stratton. So this suggests to me that, very much like these people have filled David Grusch's head with all this science fiction bullshit, they've said a lot of stuff to Knapp and Corbell as well that they're not saying in this movie. So George Knapp is not happy. He's saying if you're making a movie and you're calling for disclosure and honesty, and we want to know the truth, tell us the truth, we can handle the truth, we want transparency, you have to live up to that standard too. Elizondo and Stratton. That's from George Knapp. So, you've got David Grusch saying, these people are... Elizondo's got to take the red meat to the skiff, so he's obviously told him something behind the scenes he's not repeating, something that can be checked that he's not repeating. because he knows what will happen as soon as somebody checks it. So yeah, Elizondo must have told Knapp and Corbell behind the scenes, Stratton probably too, he was part of the Legacy Program. You know, because remember, Grusch said if Lou Elizondo was part of the Legacy Program, he should just come out and say so. And he's not doing that. He's not taking the red meat. That's because Elizondo and these other characters, probably from the TTSA and all that bloody bullshit, will build a starship over the weekend and just send us some money, you know. God. And people did. You know, he's been telling them that, you know, he's part of the Legacy Program. Now he's not repeating that. Grusch is upset, Knapp's upset, you know. I dare say Corbell is upset. Couldn't be saying the same thing? You know, what, you're telling us this stuff, but you're not telling anybody else this stuff. So they're telling fanciful yarns behind the scenes, but they can't tell them to anybody that's in a position to check them out. They couldn't go and tell Arrow what they've told Grusch and Knapp and Corbell, because they know it would all fall in a heap overnight. Remember, Knapp has said, you know, with all the decades he's been looking into this, he went to Russia and he looked at all their UFO files and everything else, and a month ago or so on Weaponized, he said that he doesn't believe in aliens. That's George Knapp, doesn't believe in aliens. Knapp wants to know the truth. He wants to see the red meat. He wants to see tangible evidence. And good on him for that. So now, I saw Farah being interviewed by Joe Rogan. Now, I can't remember whether the first bit came from a Joe Rogan interview with Farah. It probably did. As I've said before, you know, I make these notes at different times, you know, different days of the week, as the week progresses, because I'm not retired. You know, I work full-time for a living. So I might forget I've made a note. Now, I saw Dan Farah being interviewed by Joe Rogan. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well written here. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Farah said they have been here a long time. No tangible evidence to support that. They have been monitoring us a long time. No evidence to support that. No tangible evidence to support that. But now we've evolved to be dangerous. He's dreaming, isn't he? He's absolutely dreaming, isn't he? And we're either at, through secret programs, their level, or we're about to be. And that's where you get to a crossroads. As far as I know, now, that's where you get to a crossroads. That's complete and utter rubbish. You know, he's giving the impression that Farah is giving the impression that we have, as he swallowed all this secret space program bullshit, you know, Farah is giving the impression that he believes we can travel to another star system. We've evolved to be dangerous. We can travel to another star system. Or we're about to be able to do that. And it's complete and utter nonsense. It's rubbish. It may not be possible to travel with a spacecraft with a crew on it to another star system. It may just not be possible forever. So Farah really is just full of it's the bullshitter, isn't he? Does he believe any of this nonsense? Has he got zero critical thinking ability? I wonder what his mate Spielberg thinks of all this rubbish. We can't travel around the galaxy. You know, we are not dangerous to aliens in any way, shape or form. And we're certainly not about to be able to do that. You know, if it's possible at all. It probably isn't possible to travel with a vehicle with a crew on it between stars. If it was, it would be hundreds of years away. You know, ETs would have plenty of time to observe us and nip us in the bud if they thought we were anywhere near getting star travel capability. You know, they might say, well, you know, we'll have a look at these guys. They're all at each other's throats. Wars all over the place. You know, we'll keep an eye on them, but you know, they can't travel between the stars. They're not in a position to come and bother us. You know, when they do develop that technology, we'll have a look at them then. If they haven't sorted themselves out, we'll wipe them out biologically, because we do not want an aggressive species like that travelling around the galaxy. Maybe something like that is happening. Personally, I don't think so. I don't think we're being observed. But it's something that you hear mentioned from time to time, isn't it? You know, we're certainly nowhere near being able to travel between stars with a vehicle with a crew on it. Absolute rubbish. Complete and utter drivel. Now, I saw James Fox interviewing our old mate Lou Elizondo, the Chandelier Man. Elizondo said, people say, did you see an alien? What I saw was material. Fox says, you're a first-hand witness. Not that Fox is leading him at all. You're a first-hand witness, Mr. Chandelier Man. Elizondo responds, starting with is never a good look. Elizondo continues after a bit of movement. First-hand witness to the fact that we've been studying this for a long time and we are in possession of very exotic material. So he's a first-hand witness. What does that mean exactly? He's a first-hand witness to the fact that we've been studying this for a long time. What's he talking about? Blue Book, looking at UFOs? Certainly not studying any recovered ET equipment, are they? Any ET technology. We are in possession, pardon me, of exotic material that, he pauses for effect. Then he said, may very well not be from here. So he's not a first-hand witness, is he? He doesn't sound like he's even seen this stuff. So, in response to Fox's question, are you a first-hand witness? The answer is no. It's a resounding no. Now, is Elizondo talking about this layered bismuth magnesium material that's been doing the rounds for a long time? You know, the TTSA, Linda Moulton Howe, anonymously given to Linda Moulton Howe, was it? Is that what he's talking about? Fox doesn't press him on that. Fox should have said to him, are you talking about the layered bismuth magnesium material? The fine layers of bismuth and magnesium. Mr. Elizondo, is that what you're talking about? Is this meta-material? Because if it is, Arrow had a look at it. They analysed a sample of it and said this has never been in space because cosmic rays, solar radiation, all that sort of stuff, will affect materials in certain ways. They analysed the materials. It had never been in space. The description of the material with the layered magnesium and bismuth is the scum you get on the top of the Bedderton-Kroll lead purification process. Takes the impurities out of the lead, forms a crust on the top in layers. And people say, oh, I've got this layered bismuth magnesium material here. Why would anybody, this is Nolan, why would anybody engineer this material like this? And of course it's not engineered, it's industrial waste. It's the scum floating on top of lead, part of the lead purification process. I'll leave a link to the Bedderton-Kroll lead purification process below. And I might leave Mac Brazel's statement again, just in case no one's seen it, the guy that found the Roswell wreckage. So you can read about what he found. He's not describing an alien spacecraft. That might save you a few minutes reading it. So is Elizondo talking about this? So if Elizondo said, if you interview Elizondo and he says we're in possession of very exotic material that, he's going to pause for effect, of course, may very well not be from here, ask him if it's this layered bismuth magnesium material that's been doing the rounds, the stuff that was analysed by Arrow, the stuff that was anonymously given to Linda Moulton Howe or Bob Bigelow, the stuff that's already been discarded as being extraterrestrial material. Is that the stuff you're talking about, Mr. Elizondo? That would be my question to him. Now, yeah, this metamaterial's been doing the rounds for a very long time. Yeah, it's just nonsense. Okay. Now, while it moved on to a really quite impressive graphic, it's obviously AI generated, of a flying saucer. The visitors. They must have just had lunch. So, yeah. So James Fox, if you're really interested in the truth, if you're going to interview these people, press them on that. Get yourself a bit of an education on the subject. Fox, of course, is a fanboy. Maybe he doesn't want to ask pressing questions. I mean, could you imagine me interviewing Elizondo? He'd go, who? No, God, no. He's going to ask me some real questions. Can't be interviewed by that guy. Mind you, to be perfectly honest, I really wouldn't give the Chandelier Man the time of day. Yeah, so we see this image of this really impressive graphic of a flying saucer. It's in a hangar with lights shining down on it. Someone's walking away from it. I couldn't quite see who it was. I don't think it was Elizondo. It might have been Stratton. Someone walking away from it anyway. Now the flying saucer landing gear appeared to have wheels on it. The struts underneath it had wheels on it. Like an aircraft undercarriage had been cropped and pasted on there. Imagine a flying saucer running down the runway. It's got to get up to 15,000 knots before it can lift off. Maybe the ETs just pop in for some new tyres. Ridiculous, of course. So, yeah. If the ETs have got this amazing ability to manipulate gravity, why would they need tyres on the landing gear of their flying saucer? Oh dear, I don't know. Now, Stephen Greer, I can't believe I'm even mentioning this guy. I put a line through this clown a very long time ago. Don't even look at his stuff, it's just drivel, you know. Tells us Danny Sheehan told him that Elizondo had told him. You see the recurring theme here. It's all Chinese whispers, isn't it? None of them have got any tangible evidence. You know, So Danny Sheehan told Greer that Elizondo had told him that he had been in a facility where an actual extraterrestrial vehicle was stored. Apparently not that he saw this extraterrestrial vehicle, of course, you know, not even with his amazing remote viewing ability. Just that he'd been in a facility where an actual extraterrestrial vehicle was stored. Okay, so when he was at this facility, was this visit at the same time that this alleged ET vehicle was being stored there? So did he go up to the counter and they said, look, you know, sorry Louis, we got an extraterrestrial vehicle in the warehouse out the back here, but I can't let you in to look at it. Is that what happened? Or had it been moved on and Elizondo just went to the building and they said, you know, we used to have an alien spacecraft out the back. Not for sale, you know, it's a demonstration only. Good grief. So, you know what? Why didn't he see or touch this alleged ET spacecraft? Elizondo was their top investigator, wasn't he? So he tells us, with his hobby ATIP program. It wasn't funded by the US government at all. Top man in ATIP. It's a bit like me being the top man on the Steve Mumbling channel, really. And I'm probably paid a similar fee. Oh dear, this is just rubbish, isn't it? I mean, this is probably what Elizondo told Grusch as well, you know. This sort of smacks of, it's a sort of bit of next level up, isn't it, you know. So he's not saying he saw it, he's saying he was at he was in a building where an extraterrestrial spacecraft was stored. Not that he saw it, touched it, smelt it. Even if he was there at the same time this alien vehicle was being stored there. This has got more holes than a colander, hasn't it? But I suspect this is what Elizondo has told Grusch. And this is why Grusch is annoyed. You know, Elizondo's told him he's been in a building where there's an alien spacecraft, but you know, why isn't he telling anyone where this is? Please, Mr. Elizondo, take the red meat. Help me out. You've told me all this bullshit. I've made a complete fool of myself on the mainstream media. That's David Grusch. And now you're not backing me up. So yeah, this will be part of the red meat Grusch wants Elizondo to take to a skiff or to Arrow. He won't, of course, because as soon as he does, it's done and dusted, isn't it? This whole thing falls in a heap. So Grusch wants Elizondo to tell Luna, Burlison and co. in a skiff well, that Arrow will be in attendance for, of course, but it will never happen. Detail like that can be checked and it will be found to be science fiction rubbish immediately, if not sooner. Put a line through Greer, put a line through Sheehan, put a line through Elizondo. You know, I put a line through these characters a long time ago. Jeremy Corbell tells us Lou Elizondo probably has a large history with the UFO thing that is not public yet. That's Jeremy Corbell. tells us Lou Elizondo probably has a large history with the UFO thing that is not public yet. I think it's pretty safe to say he hasn't, has he? Elizondo's a fanboy. That's why he started ATIP. He's got no more experience with extraterrestrials than I have, or you have. It's all bullshit. You know, even if he's making claims about UAPs and UFOs, as I've said before, there is no tangible link between UAPs and UFOs and extraterrestrials. The whole thing is pointless. Focusing on UAPs and UFOs is just fluff. It's padding. Yeah, it's all speculation. It's nothing more than that. You know, it's science fiction nonsense. Fox asks Elizondo, if you told me everything you know, would you go to jail? Elizondo responds, yes, or potentially worse. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. Not much. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. There's a reason why I live where I live. There's a reason why I'm always, wait for it, heavily armed. And he goes like that. Saw him standing at the bar. This is in his bar and grill, you know, Bombshell's bar and grill, and he's talking to Fox, and he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He doesn't look armed to me. You think he's going to be sitting in his bar talking to James Fox, you know, with a bazooka, grenades, you know. Uzi 9mm. But he's not, he's just sitting there with a drink. You've met my 5 German Shepherds. So he lives with 5 German Shepherds. Yeah, I mean, that'd drive anyone crazy, wouldn't it? Those bloody things. My family and I have very significant security concerns. Yeah, probably concerned that the dogs might eat his whole family, I would think. You know, he's so concerned about his security, he's sitting in his own public bar and grill, completely unarmed. It appeared to me he was completely unarmed. Telling Fox his science fiction stories. Now, if he's told all he's going to tell for security reasons, remember he said recently, you know, it's not his job to tell us anything new. Why would people pay to hear him speak? They've already heard everything he's got to say. What would be the point of going to see Lou Elizondo speaking anywhere? What would be the point of having him as a keynote speaker? What would be the point of having him on TV? You know, he's so worried about his security. He's on every social media platform, you know, telling everybody all about it. You know, he said all he's going to say. He's told all he's going to tell for security reasons. You know, why would people pay to go and see him? Well, just to see images of a chandelier and crop irrigation circles. Of course, he has to generate intrigue. He's got a book to sell, you know, and he wants to keep going on these podcasts. He wants to stay in the limelight. I don't think it's got much to run this because they're running out of juice, aren't they? They're not, lots more people now are saying we need to see tangible evidence. You know, this is just stories. More and more and more people are saying it's bullshit. As I've said, you know, even some of the fanboys are leaning in that direction now. He has to generate intrigue because there is none. I know about it, but I can't talk about it, is his favourite phrase. It's a recurring theme with Elizondo. What's the point? That's all he ever says. Now, none of his the security measures he described would be effective if anyone, let alone a government or military professional, wanted to kill him. You know, he's got all these security measures, all these German shepherds. He's always heavily armed. You know, he's walking around Walmart with a bazooka and a machine gun and grenades. If someone wanted to kill him, what would probably happen is they look at his schedule for a few days and say, okay, well, this is the time he comes up to his bar and grill. You know, as soon as he pulls up in his car, they just step up and shoot him in the head. He'd be strapped in the car. He wouldn't even see them. It's all sensationalistic bullshit. And if the government wanted him dead, he'd be dead. That's the bottom line, isn't it? You know. You know, he can't talk about it. Yet he's telling everyone all this is going on. And, you know, I can't understand how anybody with an IQ bigger than their shoe size can take these people seriously. I just can't get my head around that. So, it's all dramatic drivel. You know, no one's going to kill Elizondo. He knows that. You know, it's all science fiction rubbish. Why would they kill him? Elizondo continues. There are a lot of dangers here, and there's a lot of people that want to see me fail. They want to see this topic get pushed back into the corner, into the recesses of the obscure for the next 80 years. Now remember, he's talking to James Fox here. Fox interrupts, interjects. For another 80 years, you mean, Lou? You know. He's suggesting, remember Roswell? Elizondo replies, for another 80 years. Oh dear, this is to suggest that it goes back to Roswell. As I've said before, Roswell was not the crash of an alien spacecraft. And I will leave a link to Mac Brazel's statement below. You know, he describes finding balsa wood sticks, tin foil, rubber strips, a cardboard fin stuck to a surface with scotch tape. And I've said it before, do they really think aliens are going to cross the galaxy so they can go and come to Earth just to buy scotch tape? Really, you know, the whole thing is ludicrous. So I'll leave a link below to Mac Brazel's statement. I've left links to it before, but if you haven't read it, yeah, read it. It's worth a look. And remember, he found it during the 14th. So any of this nonsense you hear about storms on July the 7th and all that, it's just drivel. It was, the wreckage of the Mogul balloon string had been lying on his ranch for 3 weeks by then. Elizondo tells us he will never discuss classified information. So if he's never going to tell us anything classified, why does he need all this completely ineffective security? You know, he continues with a completely meaningless, rambling monologue. He doesn't even get to B. Remember when Fox asked him the question, he said A, and then he went into this rambling monologue. He doesn't even get to B. And in this thing with Fox in his bar, Fox was going to ask Elizondo 5 questions, and then Elizondo was going to ask Fox 5 questions. Elizondo never asked Fox 1 question. I don't think Fox asked Elizondo 5 questions. He just sprays out these monologues to shut up anybody asking him any questions. So if you get to interview Elizondo, bear that in mind. First question to ask him. What is your personal experience with extraterrestrial technology? Extraterrestrial biology. What is your personal experience with extraterrestrial materials, Mr. Elizondo? Oh dear. Fox then asks Elizondo, if you were going to stand up at a podium and you had 30 seconds to talk to the world about the phenomenon, UAPs and UFOs, what would you say? This was quite funny, because Elizondo went, 30 seconds, what would I say? Clock's ticking, Mr. Elizondo. Elizondo is completely lost for words. He's got no idea what to say because it's all rubbish. He's got to be careful what he says, because he has to try and remember what he said in the past. When you make stuff up, you have to rehearse. If you're going into an interview, you think you're going to be asked about stuff, you have to rehearse your responses, and that really knocked him for six. He didn't answer. He said, "Can we get back to that?" He can't even talk for 30 seconds on the subject. Oh dear. I know what Carl Nell would say, of course. Carl Nell's famous monologue that has zero tangible evidence to support it, of course. Yeah. Now, what I thought was quite funny as well is they're sitting in Elizondo's bar and grill, Bombshells. Big mural on the wall in the background. It appears to show an American Air Force Kitty Hawk in a dogfight, and it looks like there's the Tower Bridge in London in the background. So he's sort of suggesting that the US Air Force was involved in the Battle of Britain, was he? That was a year and a... the Americans didn't come into the war until a year and a half after that, did they? Certainly there were no US Air Force Kitty Hawks dogfighting in the Battle of Britain. There's nothing this guy does authentic. Yeah. Now, I saw Danny Sheehan being interviewed by somebody. I don't know why people waste their time with Danny Sheehan. Everything he says is complete and utter drivel. Sheehan tells us, we know we have 9 recovered ET spacecraft. Russia has 1 and China has 1. So he's saying the US has 9. He knows the US has 9. He doesn't, of course. There's not a scrap of tangible evidence to support even one extraterrestrial spacecraft being on Earth. Crashed spacecraft being recovered and reverse engineered on Earth. Not one. Everyone keeps saying this, but they never ever prove it. You're telling me ETs are coming here, crashing here, and you're reverse engineering their technology. Prove it. Don't keep telling me over and over and over, you're bashing me with a bit of wood saying believe it, believe it, believe it, without a scrap of tangible evidence, because I'm never going to believe it. Nor will anybody else with an IQ bigger than their shoe size. Sheehan knows no such thing. If you interview Danny Sheehan, ask him what personal experience he has with recovered extraterrestrial technology and biology. And he'll say, well, I've been told. I've seen a photograph of a flying saucer sticking out the ground at an angle. Meaningless, of course. And the reason you can see a flying saucer sticking out the ground at an angle and it's not completely destroyed like you would see in an aircraft crash is you have to be able to identify it as a flying saucer. It's a fake photograph. Sheehan's making these extraordinary claims. He should provide extraordinary evidence. Or shut STFU. Shut the you-know-what up. He keeps spruiking all this rubbish. Push for disclosure. Send us money, you know. Become a member for $5 or whatever it is. It's never going to happen. People are wasting their money. They're wasting their time on Sheehan's Institute. On Burchett's Institute. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. You can't produce that? STFU. You know, I've said it before, no ETs are going to come here and crash. And even if they did, there would be a contingency for their recovery. You know, these little vehicles, they would have come from a mothership. It will recover their technology and their people. We'll just put some sort of protective blister over it. We won't be able to prevent that recovery. Their technology will be many orders of magnitude better than anything we could muster. It's complete rubbish. Sheehan says he knows exactly where they are. This is the 9 recovered alien spacecraft, presumably. And he's been trying to get members of Congress to go to these places and look for themselves. So has Sheehan been to these places and looked for himself? He's just repeating what he's been told, isn't he? I'd have said, Mr. Sheehan, so you have been to these places and you have personally seen these 9 recovered alien vehicles, have you? These alien spacecraft. Is that right? See what he says. Oh, well, you know, well, I've told, you know, the Admiral or Colonel told me that's where they are. Not good enough. By a very long chalk. So, he wants to get members of Congress to go to these places and look for themselves, but they won't because they can't get clearances. Now, how many times do we hear these people hiding behind clearances? Of course, Arrow is cleared to hear any testimony, to look at any program, any compartment. Arrow could go and have a look at these 9 recovered alien spacecraft, couldn't they? Why muck around with Congress if they can't get the security clearance to go to these places? Just get Arrow to go and have a look. Why doesn't Sheehan do that? Because he knows there's nothing there, I strongly suspect. He knows it's all bullshit. There always has to be a barrier between the evidence and the people looking for it. The people saying, show me the evidence. Well, there's clearances, security, you know. I'd love to tell you, but I can't. There's always a barrier between what we're looking for and the people that are telling us they're aware of it. They're working with it. They know about it. But they can't tell us. There has to be that clearances barrier there. Because if it wasn't there, and they gave detail, that could be checked by Arrow, and it would be dismissed as being science fiction rubbish immediately. That's why Sheehan doesn't talk to Arrow. And if you interview Danny Sheehan, just say to him, you want to prove your case, Mr. Sheehan, why don't you tell Arrow where these recovered alien spacecraft are being stored? Why don't you do that? Why muck around with Congress and clearances and all that when you can just talk to Arrow and they can just go and have a look? They're cleared to do that. I strongly suspect it's because Sheehan knows Arrow would find nothing ET related, and they would tell us it's all science fiction rubbish very quickly. Sheehan repeats all these ridiculous claims from Philip Corso's book. So Sheehan believes the rubbish that Corso wrote, about the fibre optic tubes, and all this night vision, and it's all complete and utter rubbish. Sheehan tells he believes that. Corso was a colonel, he wouldn't lie. Air Force colonels don't lie. Yeah, right. Even though Corso's son, in an interview, said it was fabricated so the book would sell enough copies to put his kids through college. Now, back to James Fox. Tells us the men in black, Jake and Elwood, threatened witness of alien. Brazilian military officer breaks silence on driving alien in a truck. Did he ask Mr. Fox, is that good enough to get the $200,000 you're offering to prove the ridiculous Virginia story? So Jake and Elwood, the men in black, black hat, black jacket, black pants, white shirt, black tie, men in black. Not going to stick out like a sore thumb anywhere. I mean, if I saw a couple of guys like that getting out of the car down the road, I think someone had died. So, just out of curiosity, why doesn't just one man in black come forward and claim their Nobel Prize for proving with tangible evidence that we're not alone in the universe? You've got this secret organisation, all these men in black. They're going to be involved with all this stuff, the men in black, this secret cabal or whatever it is. Why doesn't just one of them come forward with a scrap of tangible evidence to prove we're not alone in the cosmos, get a Nobel Prize, get a big payout, get their name in the history books as the person that proved with tangible evidence that we are not alone in the cosmos? All the podcasts, the TV shows, not one of these men in black has come forward with a scrap of tangible evidence to prove any of this is real. If I was a man in black, I would do that. I think, why do I have to go every day, into the men in black office? I have to get the black hat, the black tie, the black jacket, black pants out of my locker, man in black number 5. And I have to go out and threaten people, stand on their doorsteps and say, look, don't talk about this or you'll be getting another visit. It doesn't seem like very much in the way of career progression there. So why doesn't one of these guys come forward and reveal this is all real with tangible evidence? They could become immediately famous, win a Nobel Prize, and they could bring some colour into their lives. Their miserable monochromatic lives. Bring some colour into their miserable monochromatic lives. Imagine what the inside of their office is like. Black walls, black ceiling, black doors. They're trying to find their way out. Where's the canteen? It's drivel. It's absolute rubbish. Men in black. God. Now I saw a James Lukatsky interview from a couple of years ago. He tells us the people who are feeding Grusch information are wrong. Maybe they're delusional. So who's he talking about? Is he talking about Elizondo and Puthoff and Davis? Remember, Grusch is he's a fanboy. He's got no critical thinking ability. He's just swallowed all this rubbish. He's made a fool of himself on mainstream media by repeating all this rubbish. Now he's not being backed up. Bit of a rift occurring behind the scenes. Lukatsky is saying that he knows, basically, that these guys fed Grusch a lot of bullshit. They're wrong. They're delusional. Maybe they're just bullshitters, Mr. Lukatsky. It's a far simpler explanation, isn't it? Then I saw Mr. Coulthart. He tells us people in Congress know it's true. He mentions Tim Burchett, who thinks UAPs, UFOs may be demonic. Remember, Burchett thinks they may be demonic. How seriously could you take someone that has a belief like that? Of course, none of the people that know it's true UFOs may be demonic. Of course, none of these people. Of course, none of these people know it's true. No one in Congress knows it's true. There's zero tangible evidence to support even one ET encounter here on Earth. You know, the Pentagon has made an official statement telling us there's zero tangible evidence to support ETs coming here, crashing here, or their technology being reverse engineered. That's an official statement from the Pentagon. So members of Congress may choose to believe, people like Luna may choose to believe Grusch and these other, Elizondo and these other characters, but that doesn't mean they know it's true. That just means they choose to believe what they've been told. Just like Coulthart, you know. So Coulthart tells us he wants the government, the US government, to come clean. Well, they have. The Pentagon has made a statement saying it's all rubbish. They have come clean. Coulthart tells us Trump is too distracted with world events to disclose. Well, there's got to be some reason, isn't there? The truth is, Trump has zero interest in the subject. He's told us in his own words he doesn't believe in aliens. Trump knows it's all bullshit, you know. The fanboys have been told officially by the Pentagon it's all bullshit. The only statement they will hear is it's all bullshit from Trump. The only statement they will accept is it's all true. So as long as they're not hearing it's all true, it's all a cover-up, you know. They're not coming clean when they've been told the truth. They just won't accept it. So, you know, no one has seen any tangible evidence to support even one of their fanciful yarns. The fanboys are all convinced it's all true. What a peculiar bunch. You know, they're happy to accept all these fanciful claims with zero tangible evidence. They've been told by the Pentagon it's all rubbish, and Coulthart is saying the government should come clean. Well, I think they have, Mr. Coulthart. You need to accept the truth. The truth is, it's all science fiction rubbish. There are no crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft on this planet. We're not getting any ET visitors. If Trump stood on a podium and said it's all bullshit, would they accept that? You know, they'd be happy to accept it if Trump stood there and said it's all true. You know, we've been reverse engineering alien technology for 80 years since the Roswell crash. That was an ET craft. They'd be happy to accept that. But Trump telling them it's all bullshit. Oh no. Government needs to come clean. You can't believe a word Trump says. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You know. So, you know, what we know what they're going to say. If they don't hear what they want to hear, And there may be enough pressure on Trump to make some sort of statement, but what he will say is exactly what the Pentagon said. There is no evidence of extraterrestrials coming here, crashing here, and there's zero evidence of their equipment being reverse engineered. Zero tangible evidence to support any of those claims. What are the fanboys going to say then? What's Coulthart going to say then? What's Sheehan going to say then? What's Burchett going to say then? They'd be happy to accept, they'd be overjoyed if he said it was all true. If he says it's all bullshit, it's going to be a big cover-up. Oh, you can't believe a word he says. Makes no sense, does it? It makes no sense to me, anyway. But, you know, there we go. All right, well, that's it for another week. That's all of it, I think. As I said, apologies for it getting a bit repetitive, but, you know, the piffle peddlers are repetitive, all the bullshitters are repetitive, and if I comment on what they're saying, it's going to be repetitive. But there we go, it's just one of those things. Well, if you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, as usual, many thanks for watching, and maybe I'll catch you again.